Hey, Sarah.
Hi, Louise.
Here we are again. And today is Journey of the Adopted Self by Betty Jean Lifton, Chapter 9, The Adult Child.
Oh, boy.
Here we go.
I mean, I can't, again, I wish I'd read this book many years ago.
Me too.
But I didn't. So
Me too. I took screenshots of a few things to send my son because of conversations we had to show him. Because I'm like, wow, I am an adult child. Well, here we go.
I have a friend who's adopted, and her son is now in the hospital. I don't want to get into details about it, but I read a paragraph in here that reminded me so much of her. It was about parenting as an adoptee. But at any rate, it really, a lot of this chapter hit me hard.
Yeah, me too. Well, it starts off, I'm just going to read there's two quotes at the beginning, but one I thought was just puts it in perspective. No one has yet put into words the psychological complexity of being adopted. Adult adoptee, 1990.
Yes, which since then they have.
Yes.
Adoptee Twitter is a great resource for, getting into the psychological complexity of being adopted.
It does. And if anyone wants to learn about it, they should go on and just read things and adoptee TikTok too.
Right. Yes.
It's now we have that. People get mad at social media, but the platforms do inform and help people find community in this.
For sure.
Well, what hit you off the bat? Because there's a lot. I circled like 5 things right away. Me.
Well, I liked, just right out it said adult adoptees, unlike adolescent adoptees, are not overrepresented in mental health facilities. To accept this as a marker of health, however, is to overlook the fact that these adoptees seeking private therapy or support groups for alcohol or drug addiction, eating disorders, depression, or marital failure do not become part of the clinical statistics. Yes. Because you're so far away from it at that point, right? That it wouldn't occur to a therapist to
put into the statistic. So
right, or to really, focus on the adoption. They're focusing on the symptoms, if you will, but not the.
Well, we both had that.
Actual.
Yeah, we both had that for many years. And here's a part she gets into in the same vein. She says, adult adoptees often describe themselves as shy loners or floaters lacking self-confidence. They may change jobs often and have problems with control, power, intimacy, and commitment. Ding, 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 ding. These are self-negating. They may look secure, but they suffer from feelings of shame, inner badness, and defectiveness. And this part I thought was big. They fear homelessness, betrayal, disintegration, and going mad. But most of all, what do they fear? Abandonment.
Yeah, I highlighted that whole paragraph too.
Me too. I just put, yep. And then she gets into the abandonment complex, which, the other day I was talking to a friend and they said, oh, I have abandonment issues too. And I was thinking, well, you do, but I couldn't even explain what it was to live with like abandonment as your
right. It's
core.
There was some place in the chapter where it said, well, sure, people do feel abandonment, but for the adoptee, it's a whole different level. Like when people say, yeah, I wasn't adopted, but I relate to the abandonment issues.
Yes.
I don't think they're really getting the difference.
No. And I don't know if people can, because, I've spoken to a lot of friends about this and my husband, and unless you have it, it's sort of like explaining. I feel like you and I can talk about, we're like, yeah, like it just, you saying I have abandonment issues and I'll say, oh yeah. Like I know what you're saying.
Yes. Because like here's someone says, my fear of being abandoned borders on terror and paranoia. I have a recurring dream in which I'm abandoned by Earth. Someone at 44, like who still fears it,
Yes. Well, and you know what, the one thing she described in here that I was dying to talk to you about, my husband calls me Mixed Message Marie because Marie is my first name. Can't believe I'm saying that on here. Nobody better tweet that to me. So Mixed Message Marie, the reason he says that to me, I try to tell people this, but she sums it up. She said, to flee or to merge, that's the dilemma that face adoptees. They often have the need to merge with others as a way of overcoming their loneliness and dependency, while at the same time they have to pull away and escape someone's control. So in relationships, they give constant mixed messages. That is like my entire life summed up, you know?
Yes.
And I know you probably have this too. I just am like, please don't leave me, but I'm going to push you away. And then, it just goes in the cycle. But she gets further into it. I'm not going to read the whole chapter, but it's, you know, pretty big for me. Just being, I put, oh my God.
Yeah.
Where was this book? Where was this book,
I
Sarah?
know. It would have really done a lot of, been a big help. Then she gets into like seeking the mother and the lover,
Yeah. What'd you
love and
think
the
of that part? Seeking the mother and the lover. I thought that was interesting.
definitely interesting.
I didn't feel as connected to that part. Did you?
I didn't. No. I mean,
Yeah.
if it had said seeking the father and the lover, then yes, I probably would have
But
related at a different point in my life. But
but I think that's some of it, even though she didn't get into it, I think it was like looking for someone to nurture you
I
or
think looking for a parent, or
parent.
some sort of some replacement,
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah. I
this
agree.
all encompassing something.
Yeah.
I did relate to the ghost kingdom too.
Yeah.
Adoptees who cannot find a satisfying relationship with the opposite sex often retreat to the ghost kingdom, where their fantasies may prove more safe and rewarding than their experiences. Definitely related to that from past experiences, having these high expectations on someone and being then, of course, disappointed when they don't live up to my fantasies.
Yeah. I actually thought of you with that because we know a lot about each other. But I was like, because I've been through it too, but I was like, oh, Sarah and I have talked a lot about this, but I'll let her talk about it because it's true. Well, the part that I thought was 100% where I was like, oh my gosh, this is me. Hold on, I'm skipping a page here. Was the fear of intimacy.
Yes, for
Yeah.
sure.
Right. I think both of us can relate to that. And here where she talks about the Adoptees take on the role of the imposter early in life from the moment they try in earnest to live as if they're a natural member of the family in which they find themselves. And this is the line I circled. I've always felt I was given the wrong part in the wrong play. It was a script written for somebody else.
Yeah.
And I read so much of that on Twitter too. People just feeling like they're not in their right thing when they're with people.
Right.
That
And I had
awkward.
like, when looking, with like family and merged families and all this stuff where, someone, Ben, adoptee says, I was watching them and thinking, who are these people? I don't look like them. I don't belong with them. And,
It's like staring at them.
yes, like I've had that in my life. Like, how are we nothing alike? Like I would joke around, before the really understanding
Yeah.
the adoption piece of it, just like, oh, I just, we're just different or,
Yeah.
but so different,
So different. My brother and I would joke around often about it. And now sometimes when he makes little jokes, I'll think, yeah, that's right. I'll say that's exactly right. And he's like, wow, that's just, I can't. He's like, I really see what you're saying now. I'm like, I know we're just different. I mean, we love each other. We've known each other for years and years and years. And that we have this tight bond. Like he's just my brother. But at the same time, we just come at things just like foreign beings,
Yeah.
It's crazy. What was the next
And
part?
then need for control.
Yeah. You know what? I was thinking about you. Here's a little segue. The only time you and I have ever really gotten in big arguments or done anything is when we owned a business together. I don't want people to think we're arguing off our set now. When we had a business that was very stressful at times. I think really stressful when I look at how businesses
Looking
run.
back, and it was
We took
very
on
stressful.
like,
Yeah.
let's take out a non-operating truck into the middle of the night and do these
Yes.
parties. The need for control, I think, is the only thing that would really trigger us because we both like feels like, and I know I have control issues, but I've had to work so hard to like let other people have control or say, okay, I'm okay in a situation. I don't have to have control. Like she even said some adoptees they fear flying or things
Right.
where they're giving
Yes.
control to someone else. And sometimes I have that driving
Oh,
or
driving. Like when I was just
yeah,
thinking when Becker and I drove across the country and we hit Colorado and there were the fires and we got our, route diverted like by 6 hours and we were going down these
I remember.
treacherous
Yeah.
2-lane roads and it got dark and I finally, I was so freaked out and I had to let Becker drive and he drove through the mountains and, the whole time, finally I gave in. But for the
Yes.
longest time, we had this huge fight and, I just was so scared to let him
Have that.
drive,
Yeah.
but I was too scared to drive myself in the dark in the mountains. So it was
That's a big symbolism on life right there for
yeah.
us.
Finally, but I don't remember what do you have any specific memories of you and I having?
No, I don't. I remember once, I have no idea what we argued about. But you said something like, you're just trying to have control. And I'm like, well, you're a control freak. And I think we started laughing. Like, I actually remember we used something about control. And later I was like, gosh, we're so alike in that way. And now I'm like, oh, we're really alike in that way. Not just personality, but I
Well, and
think,
I feel like I used to have a bit of, oh, I wouldn't say OCD, but it would be like I would leave my house and I would have to go back inside probably
oh,
5 or 6 times. Did I unplug this? Did I turn this off? 5 or 6 times, out of, I've completely do not do that anymore. I don't know
yeah.
how I overcame that, but I mean, it wasn't that long ago or with Becker as a baby, working
Oh,
myself up
yes.
into a frenzy if he was with someone else or,
Oh, that's how I was. If somebody, I could really had a hard time letting him be with somebody else. I would
mhm.
check and check and check and not have fun where I was supposed to be until I came back.
And yeah. And even now,
Yes,
like
I still have that with my dog, by the way.
me too with, yes,
I know. I was waiting
I
for you to go,
still do
yeah.
have that to some extent with Becker. Like I'm so glad he's in a relationship and that they live together and I don't worry about him now.
Yes.
It's just, yeah. Well, then that leads us into adoptees as a parent.
Yeah. I thought this was probably the most new thing that we've read
Yes.
and it hasn't been really addressed yet in anything we've really read together. Um, the whole thing about how people parent and become a parent and what happens to them going back, a lot of adoptees revert to childhood
Mm-hmm.
and become the child. I had I had the control things like you, like I had to be the perfect parent and show so much love and all this, but then also trying to be the friend and upset if they're mad at you.
Well,
That,
then she did say,
yeah.
because I know I have talked about this ad nauseum to people about, uh, like, cause I completely, focused on when Becker was born. I'm like, all right, he's the most important thing in my life. And like to the detriment
Other.
of career or, when my relationship with his dad ended, did not having another relationship because I was so, no, I'm not going to do to him what was done to me in terms of feeling
Yes.
like I wasn't a priority or parents putting other relationships before, so I just focused completely,
Yes.
utterly and completely on Becker until then he went off to college. I'm like, well, what, like,
Wait a second. That's
but she
also,
does say, on the positive side, the adoptee
yes.
parent being exquisitely sensitive to the insecurities of a young child tries to give their children the sense of rootedness that they did not have, not
Yes.
through the failing of the adoptive parents, but because of the existential condition of being adopted.
Hmm.
Existential condition.
It is, and it can. Well, look at. No one can see us, but on
Yeah.
YouTube, the entire 2 pages is like underlined
Yes.
and highlighted. I'm like, gosh, this is it. This is a sentence that you were just talking about, but this really was like I've circled 3 times. No one romanticizes blood relationships more than a person who has never known them.
Mm-hmm.
I think that when and every parent we've had on, and you and I both, when we've talked about that, when your child is born, we're like, it was so huge. That's when I really realized I was adopted. The
So
day,
profound. Yeah. Cause
so
it said,
profound.
When you finally hold your first blood relative, you
Mhm.
cannot help asking the inevitable question, how could any woman give up her child?
Yeah. And what were
Well, of
those
course, it's not always a
the case,
choice.
right?
Yeah.
But also what were the feelings? Like we've all dealt with our feelings, but then you think, what went on there? Like
Yeah.
I remember really having this whole new idea of everything, just that moment. And then just now you and I have talked about this, but in my family, I sort of really, even in Bill's family, I'll look for the relationships like, oh, make sure to call your mom. Like I'm so concerned about relationships. And she talked in here about how some adoptees choose not to even have kids because of the pain of
Right.
fear that goes along with all this. And I can understand that. I mean, I didn't know it was going to be so like, you know, I don't know how to explain it, but what you said, like just so immersive.
Hmm.
And, I tried to talk to my son this weekend about it during Mother's Day, and he's like, wow, Mom, this is big stuff. And he said, I see some of this, what you're talking about. I took screenshots. I'm like, you have to see some of this. It's crazy.
Well, and then there's the other type of parent who,
Oh,
distance themselves from their
yes.
children. One woman admitted that she felt she was raising her husband's two children rather than her own, that
Yeah.
she was just a caregiver and not a mother. Another who turned their children over to their father believes that she has an inability to feel as if some part of her were split off and she was not totally present.
That made me sad.
Yeah.
I think that happens more than people say too, because people don't want to talk about this.
Hmm.
Because just think how we feel like in a relationship, if a friend disowns you or you break up with somebody, what we go through. So maybe they can't handle that kind of love. I mean,
Hmm.
you know, the most adoptees feel they're unworthy of love down deep.
Right.
So this is a huge part. Well, there's a lot more in this. What do you think next? Yeah, the other part, I know there's one part I'm skipping, but it's along those lines is she talked about the fear of homelessness.
Oh God.
And um
That was,
did that hit you? Because that's actually something I'm really afraid
oh
of deep
no,
down since I was little.
me
Yes.
too.
And you and I are
And
both
and
very
I
sympathetic to homeless
I
people.
I ran away and was, like without a home for a month or so, and then
Yeah.
in juvenile hall, and come to find out this last year that that they were considering putting me in foster care as a teenager. That
Yeah.
was new information to me in my 50s. So yes, that has always, or being single at this age, these
Yeah.
fears of like what will happen to me. Yes.
Yeah. We talk about that. And that I feel that too. I feel like it's my deepest fear that I don't really tell anybody. Like at any moment, I could just be homeless and not with a family.
Yeah.
And I was like, does everybody feel that way? I thought it was just me. I read this. I'm like, wow, that's actually a thing. And you and I do talk about it in the scary part. Like I feel really lonely sometimes. And you're like, what's going to happen? We're at this age, but I feel like she just really nailed it with there's like this dark void she talked about.
Hmm.
And I myself personally, and I know you're like this because we spend enough time together, I feel really compassionate about homeless people in
Hmm.
general. Anybody I see without a home, it almost upsets me more than any other cause. And
And I feel really bad for homeless dogs.
I know, well, that's
Woody.
I can't handle that. Don't even go down the dog thing, then they'll start crying.
I know. And then I loved this last part.
Mhm.
And of course, I think my Enneagram 4 plays into, like, because fours think we're really special and different and
Well, you
no one
are.
understands us. So I like this last part about yearning for connection. Adoptees are like mythic heroes,
Mm.
orphaned, motherless, sent out into the world alone. Um, and then, it says adoptees are also perceived by others as being part of a divine
Oh,
plan. Adopted people are a special breed, according to a scholar of Kabbalah. Every soul has a purpose. Adoptees are beautiful souls, old souls. They have a special fate, a special karma to redesign the earth. They
mm.
live out everybody's fantasy of abandonment. To placate the fates, we make them divine.
Isn't that amazing? I love that
Yes.
too. I love how she writes. and ties it all together. And then
Yeah,
she says, but who wants to be divine at the cost of abandonment?
exactly.
Maybe that's,
Rather be a normal.
but maybe that is why we're supposed to figure this out. Like not everybody is going to figure this out, and some people have figured it out way past where I'm figuring it out. But maybe
Mhm.
these conversations are the journey that we're supposed to be on for this reason.
I yeah,
It was
I think
healing to
so.
read that.
I loved it.
It
It
almost made
really
me
was
cry
like,
when you're reading it. Well, this has been great. And we have, our guest today actually gets into a lot of what we're talking about.
yes. Well, stay tuned.
Stay tuned.